Hi, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Spurs Up Show. This is episode 22. We are going to be previewing the Gamecocks matchup Saturday night. The Gamecocks travel to College Station to take on the Texas A&M Aggies at 7:30 at night on SEC Network at Kyle Field. We'll be breaking down everything with the game, the key matchups, the keys to the game, and making our predictions as always. But first, of course, if you do want to follow the show, be sure to check us out on iTunes at the Spurs Up Show. Be sure to go there, rate and subscribe. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like about the show. We appreciate all the feedback always. Also, be sure to follow us on our Twitter at ArmchairSCar. That's going to be at ArmchairSCAR. Check us out on Instagram as well at ArmchairSCarolina. And this is a podcast brought to you by the Armchair All-Americans, ArmchairAllAmericans.com, localizing your sports coverage content. Be sure to go to ArmchairAllAmericans.com for all the latest breaking Gamecock news, the podcast, of course, and everything else with that. So with that being said, I'm your host, Chris Phillips. I'm joined, as always, by my colleague, Tyler Clark. Tyler, how's your week going? How are you doing on this afternoon?
I'm good. What's going on with you?
Not much. Just ready for the weekend for sure. We got a full slate of games this weekend. We can get to after we get to the preview the A&M game. There's a ton of good games this weekend. So I'm excited. But setting the stage a little bit for this one, like I said, the Gamecocks travel to Kyle Field, back on the road after being at home for 2 straight games. The Gamecocks travel a pretty long distance all the way to College Station, Texas. It's a 7:30 at night kickoff Eastern time, 6:30 p.m. Central, which would be local for them. SEC Network televised. The series history, A&M actually leads this one, Tyler. They lead the series 3-0. The teams have only squared off when the two have been in the SEC. And this has actually been South Carolina's permanent cross-division rival, if you will, kind of one of the more unique cross-divisional rivalries in the conference. Last time they met, A&M last year beat South Carolina in Williams-Brice Stadium 24-13 in what was an interesting game, sort of a defensive struggle for South Carolina when they were going through their struggles with Brandon McElwain and Perry Orth. Weren't really able to get much going. The game started with fireworks, as we've talked about before, Tyler, with A.J. Turner taking the opening handoff 75 yards for a touchdown. But not much else after that. A&M has had some pretty good success against South Carolina, including the opening of the SEC Network in 2014, where Kenny Trill, if you will, went off, and A&M sort of started it was the beginning of the end of the Spurrier era, I guess you could say. But nonetheless, South Carolina or A&M comes into this game a 9-point favorite, and the over/under is set at 50 for the ball game Saturday night. And that actually started, Tyler, I will say, it started about 55. It's dropped all the way down to 50. So pretty interesting there. Texas A&M, they're 3-1 on the year. Have wins over Nicholls State, Louisiana Lafayette, and Arkansas. Have a loss to UCLA, 45-44 in the opening weekend. I'm sure we all remember that thrilling game. Josh Rosen leading the Bruins back. Beat Arkansas, like I said last week, though, in an overtime thriller, 50-43 in Jerry World in Dallas. Was an absolutely thrilling game, Tyler. I'm not sure if you were able to watch it, but Kellen Mond really showed out. We're going to get to him in a second, but it was an absolutely great game. Real lot of fun to watch. A lot of offense, obviously. So scouting that, yeah, exactly. David Williams for Arkansas, huge game. Scouting the Aggies a little bit. They are head coach by Kevin Sumlin, who, Tyler, is a little bit on the hot seat. Definitely on the hot seat. Came into this season with, his athletic director and different people around the program kind of chirping about the job he had done and, needing to win the SEC West, needing to win 10 games. You lose the opening game to UCLA. You have one of the, I think it was like board of directors or board trustees, something along those lines, someone involved with that, basically write a letter saying, on Facebook saying you need to be fired, all this stuff. A lot of people coming at him. That's cooled down a little bit because they've won 3 in a row. However, he's definitely for sure still on the hot seat. He's in his 10th year overall as a head coach. And this is his 6th year at A&M. He's 82-39 in 10 years as a head coach, 47-22 at Texas A&M. So diving into Texas A&M just a little bit, break them down. On the offensive side, they actually average 40.8 points per game. Definitely the games against UCLA and Arkansas helped that number with big numbers there. 260.2 rush yards per game, 201 pass yards per game. And it all starts with freshman Kellen Mond at quarterback. Not exactly, I think, the guy they expected. A couple of injuries at the quarterback position have forced him into play, but he's done pretty well. 50 of 99, 649 yards, 6 touchdowns, 2 picks. But he had arguably Tyler's best game against Arkansas. He actually threw Went 14 of 27 for 216 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick, but had 10 carries for 109 yards. So safe to say he is a true dual threat quarterback, if you will. Texas A&M led in the backfield by sophomore Travion Williams. They feature really a three-headed monster in the backfield, but led by Travion Williams. He's had 50 carries for 328 yards, 4 touchdowns. But his backup, senior Keith Ford, 45 carries for 232 yards and 5 touchdowns. And they've also got a kid, sophomore Kendall Bussey. He's a real quick, real speedster. Only had 20 carries total last year. He's got 33 already this year for 206 and a touchdown. At wide receiver, a name that I'm sure we're all familiar with. The Aggies are led by junior Christian Kirk, one of the fastest players in college football, definitely one of the most explosive. And he's off to a fast start this season. 19 catches for 251 yards. Already has 4 touchdowns in 4 games. So he is off to a quick start. He's going to be Kellen Mond's favorite target all day long, and for good reason. Behind him, they've got some talent. Freshman Jamon Osman, 15 catches for 156 yards and a touchdown. And senior Damian Ratley, 5 catches for 156 yards. 0 touchdowns, but Ratley's got some big play potential with the 5 catches for 156. But you can tell that Christian Kirk is definitely the go-to guy. I mean, why not? I mean, he absolutely explosive and one of the best players in the country. On the offensive line, really big and physical group. You know, they feature a lot of experience up there, able to open up those running lanes for them, obviously, with the big numbers they've been putting up. On the defense, this is where things get a little interesting for Texas A&M. They actually give up 30.8 points per game. 114 rush yards per game and 300.5 passing yards per game to this point. However, that being said, they have forced 11 turnovers this year, which is 3rd most in FBS, something I was pretty surprised to read. It's pretty impressive. On the defensive line, they lost Myles Garrett and Deshaun Hall, who I know that we're at least familiar with. Myles Garrett, was he the top pick in the NFL draft?
He was the number 1 overall pick.
Number one overall pick in the NFL draft. But do have some experience returning. Daylon Mack leads the way. He's a really big force in the middle. Really, really big guy. At linebacker, they've actually, Tyler, I was taking a look at the defensive stats. They've got 13 sacks on the year. Most of them have come from the linebacker position, led by sophomore linebacker Tyrell Dotson. He's got 3 sacks on the year, and their veteran Otaro Alaka, he's their team's leading returning tackler with 74 tackles. He's got 1 sack as well. But the leading tackler right now is the guy in the secondary who I think would be the leader of this defense, and that's Armani Watts. He leads the team right now, 34 tackles. He's already got 5 tackles for loss and 3 interceptions. So he's been all over the field. Definitely their leader on defense, and somebody the Gamecocks are going to have to keep an eye out for. So with that being said, Tyler, let's break it down. Let's get into the nitty-gritty. Obviously, South Carolina has never beaten, Texas A&M in their history. Only played 3 games, of course. But I'm not sure if you've had a chance taking a look at this Texas A&M team. What do you see? What jumps off the page to you? Is there anything in particular that kind of, you see when you first look at Texas A&M?
Looking at this offense and the stats, I feel like this is the offense that we wanted South Carolina to have going into this year. They have, the young quarterback. They have 3 running backs that, have very similar stats. You got 2 guys that pretty much, take the load. They have 9 touchdowns combined, which is pretty much what we thought Tyson Williams and Rico Dowdle would have so far this year. And then they have the other sophomore with over 200 yards and another touchdown, which we thought would be about right for A.J. Turner right now in the season. And then at wide receiver, they're also super young, like South Carolina is. And Debo Samuel could be compared to Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk's way faster than Debo is.
Same playmaking type ability.
It's really similar. Yeah, exactly. And then the offensive line, big and physical and lots of experience, was exactly what we were saying about South Carolina in the season. So I feel like this offense pretty much thought South Carolina would go head to head. And then 1 points a game against the schedule that they've played against doesn't jump off the page. But 11 turnovers definitely scares me.
Yeah, they definitely done a good job as far as on the defensive side with turnovers, sort of like South Carolina, like you were saying, being very opportunistic. I think it's really interesting. They had the terrible loss in the first game. They were up, I forget the score, like 44-20 or 44-14, something crazy. UCLA comes all the way back. Josh Rosen leads the comeback, beats them. The fire on Kevin Sumlin is just, full flames, full steam ahead for the fire Kevin Sumlin train. And then, the next two games are even more head scratchers. They down 14-0 to Nicholls State in the fourth quarter, come back and win that game. And the next week they play Louisiana Lafayette at home. They're down at halftime, eventually score 24 straight points to win that one. But, before the Arkansas game, I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of positive momentum going on. And, they finally were able to get the offense rolling, obviously, and were able to win that one in overtime. But this is an interesting team. It's sort of like a South Carolina in the sense you don't really know what you're going to get. I surely don't know what to expect. I mean, they've shown it's sort of Jekyll and Hyde effect. I mean, like I said, looked pretty good against Arkansas, but really, really have struggled. I mean, you could say the same thing about South Carolina with Louisiana Tech. I mean, it's kind of no different, but they have really struggled. And though both those games were at home as well. One of the big storylines, I think, Tyler, South Carolina, we talked about obviously coming from last season, but South Carolina has played at a neutral site. They've gone to Missouri, but this to me is truly going to be their first test in a hostile environment at Kyle Field. 100,000 people screaming at you. It's a huge, huge, huge stadium. That place gets raucous. With all due respect to Missouri, it doesn't. So, South Carolina, this is a place they struggled in last year on the road, at Florida, at Clemson. Granted, those were two of the best teams they played all year. But, Tyler, I'm just really intrigued to see how is Jake Bentley, this offensive line, this offense as a whole, and just this young team going to handle, the hostile environment that is Kyle Field and College Station?
Yeah, that's 100%. I think the most important thing going into this game is how Jake Bentley is going to, compose himself throughout these first couple quarters. Because, the first throws that we've seen out of Bentley so far this season and early in the game, he's just off. And he's going to have to get on somehow in front of 100,000 people, literally yelling at the top of their lungs at him. So, that'll be really interesting to see the first drive. If South Carolina takes the ball like they have all year, it'll be super interesting to watch Jake.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think we're going to get to it later, but that's going to be definitely one of my keys to the game is South Carolina needs to establish something on offense and try to take the crowd out of as much as possible. I mean, the last thing you want to do when you go into a place like this is give the crowd exactly what it wants and, turn the football over or go 3 and out or give up a touchdown on their first drive, stuff like that. So it's going to be absolutely paramount. I think it's going to really start as well, just getting the running game going too. I mean, I think this is a battle of two. South Carolina hasn't been great running the football at all this year, and Texas A&M likes to run it as well with a mobile quarterback. So, I mean, it's going to be a real line of scrimmage game, and I think if South Carolina can get some consistency and establish a running game, keep Kellen Mond and that offense off the field, I think it'll do a lot of good for them as far as building that confidence and, help the defense out, get some rest as well. So, and kind of lulling that crowd, not so much to sleep, but sort of just, keeping them at bay, if you will. Obviously, we talked about earlier, Tyler, Kevin Sumlin. I mean, he's on the hot seat. There's no other question. Even if he wins this game, there's a good chance he might get fired. If he loses this one, I think the pressure's turned. I think the heater's turned up to boiling temperatures. I'll ask you, how do you think the pressure on Kevin Sumlin could affect? I'm not sure how much it's really affecting the team, if you will, but do you think that the pressure, the hot seat that Kevin Sumlin is on, because I think that they all know if he loses this game, he's pretty much guaranteed out. Do you think that has any effect on this game?
No, I don't. It obviously didn't have any effect on him against Arkansas, and we don't really know how good Arkansas or bad Arkansas is right now. I mean, the only game I've watched them play was the second half against Texas A&M and a good bit of the TCU game, and I feel like they had a good chance in that TCU game. That's really the only thing I've seen out of A&M. And, if you lose to South Carolina, does it look that bad? I guess at home it does. But I'd have to see the rest of their schedule because, I mean, it's hard. It would be hard to fire a guy like Kevin Sumlin halfway through a year.
Well, I don't think they'll fire him. I just think that, I saw a good article.
You're just saying it'll –
Just in general for the season, because honestly, before the season, they were saying that, he couldn't win basically less than 10 games or he'd be out. It's a win now situation. And, for Kevin Sumlin and Texas A&M to be 9-point favorites at home, if you were to lose that game to a 9-point underdog, I don't know how well it would sit with the faithful in College Station, Texas. But, I don't know that it'll really have that much effect on the game itself. A&M, to me, they haven't even when they played close games, they haven't, against the smaller teams, they haven't really played tight. They just haven't executed. I mean, sort of like South Carolina, like we were saying. And, their quarterback is a freshman, and he's definitely showed, he's played, he's only completing right at 50% of his passes. He's played like a freshman. There's no question about that. Yeah, I agree with you, though. I watched that Arkansas game, a pretty good bit of it. And, we saw Arkansas against TCU, and, now we look at TCU. They just beat Oklahoma State. That's a team that's on the rise and really good. And, we don't know a ton about Arkansas, but, I mean, it was definitely a good win because I think if Sumlin would have lost that game, this one would have been an absolute must-win. But I know their schedule gets a lot harder. They've still got to play Alabama. They've still got to play LSU. They've got a lot of tough games coming up. Mississippi State. I mean, they've got the whole West to deal with. So
do people really think that this team was capable of winning 10 games, though? Or do they just really not want Kevin Sumlin there? Because I don't feel like they're on paper, at the beginning of the season, that's even capable.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think they got some Kevin Sumlin fatigue for sure. But
I really like Kevin Sumlin.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, we had talked about this. I had talked about this with Dimitri on our SEC podcast, The Congregation. And he basically had asked me about Kevin Sumlin. Do you think he'd be able to find another job? I said in a heartbeat. I mean, absolutely. He's a really good coach, and he's done really well at Texas A&M. A&M's just the kind of place where, they want to compete for championships, and you got your brother Texas on the other side of you that's got Tom Herman, and they're starting to kind of come on the rise, and there's just a lot of pressure. I mean, Texas football, there's just a lot of pressure there. And, I just think that they sort of have to win this game with all those tough ones coming up. I mean, see what happened at the beginning of the season, that their quarterback got hurt. I know Jake Hubenak has come in a little bit and relieved. I forget who the starter was. I forget his name because we've been focused on Mon so much. But anyways, Mon was forced in the role. He wasn't the preseason starter. And, I mean, they do have some talent on offense, obviously, with all those running backs, Christian Kirk. But, yeah, I mean, to think A&M was just going to come into the season and win 10 games was, I agree with you, a little unrealistic. But A&M, again, one of those teams we don't know much about. And, segue into, we could say the same thing about South Carolina. Tyler, I'm really just not concerned, but I'm just interested to see what South Carolina team is going to show up because – of all the negative, about what South Carolina did against Louisiana Tech and Kentucky, it's like people are forgotten what happened against NC State and Missouri. So it's kind of like, what do you think? Is South Carolina going through a little bit of a rut? Is this the team they really are? Like, are they showing us their true colors now and they were just hot in the beginning? Or do you think it's somewhere in between?
I think it's somewhere in between. I don't think they're as, the 3-0 team that all these fans came out of nowhere and thought they were. I don't think they're that. I also don't think that they're the team that played the first three quarters against Louisiana Tech. This game's going to be really interesting, and I think this will really tell us, where South Carolina's at.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I really do think this is going to tell us South Carolina a contender or pretender. Not so much a contender like to win the East or anything, but is this a team that's going to contend to maybe win 7, win 8, maybe even win 9, maybe win one they shouldn't? Or is this going to be a team that is going to struggle to get to 6 wins? I think it's going to show us a lot. I mean, I really agree with you. I think South Carolina is much, much better than they showed in the first 3 quarters against La Tech. And, they might not be quite as good as that team that came out week 1 and, went up and down the field on NC State and dominated Missouri. I think it's somewhere kind of in the middle. But, it's interesting. I just think South Carolina showed they've got that potential in those first 2 weeks. But, again, they've got the potential, also to come out and not like they know what they're doing. So, it's just going to be really interesting. It's going to be up Will Muschamp, Kurt Roper, T-Rob. They're going to have to do a heck of a coaching job this weekend because going into College Station, like we said, in that hostile environment with a young team, getting those guys up to play, making sure everybody's communicating properly, it's going to be really key and really essential if they want to get the victory. So moving into some key matchups. Tyler, I'll go with my first one. I think this is probably going to be one of the biggest matchups of the game. And it's a guy that we always like to talk about, but doesn't get talked about too much because he hadn't been targeted. Excuse me. I think that changes Saturday. And that's going to be USC defensive back Rashad Fenton against A&M wide receiver Christian Kirk. I think without a doubt it's going to be Fenton on Christian Kirk. Rashad, he has that speed. He has that agility. And, obviously Kirk, like we mentioned, is a big-time playmaker, has the speed and agility. So it's just going to be pivotal to me. I know with Kellen Mond, he's a younger guy. They're going to need to get pressure on him to make it not as easy to get the ball to him. But that's going to be the guy they're going to get the ball in his hands. So I think it's absolutely pivotal, in my opinion, that Rashad Fenton continue to do what he's been doing, play that lockdown defense. But he's going to get his biggest test this weekend for sure.
It's hard to say because, I think they're going to do a ton of these quick throws, just screen passes. And if that's not there, then I think Mon's just going to take off running. So, my matchup would be these safeties and linebackers against in open field tackling these quick running backs and wide receivers. It's hard to pinpoint on one of them because I think they're all equally important when you're tackling in the open field. In the SEC on the road, it's super hard. So yeah, that's my first one. I think they just have to tackle an open field. Whoever is, just step up to the plate and tackle.
Absolutely. Yeah, my next matchup, I'm going to go USC center Alan Knott against the Texas A&M linebackers. And what I mean by that, like I mentioned earlier, Texas A&M linebackers have the majority of the sacks this year. From watching the little bit I did of A&M, it looks like they love the blitz. They love to bring the linebackers. They love to create pressure with more than 4 guys. South Carolina going to be on the road. It's going to be up to Alan Knott to call out the protections, communicate with Jake Bentley, know what's going on. It's just going to be absolutely pivotal to make sure everybody's in the right position to keep Jake Bentley upright, open holes for the running backs, and be able to make this offense move because South Carolina is going to have to score points. They can't do what they did against Louisiana Tech and rely on the defense. A&M is going to get theirs. They're going to absolutely have to score points in this football game to win. I think it's going to be pivotal to rely on a guy, a very, experienced guy like Alan Knott to make sure, hey, he's going to be able to call everything out. Like I said, put guys in the right positions to succeed. So I think Alan Knott anchoring that offensive line against those linebackers would be a huge second matchup for me.
I've been out of the loop. Have they announced whether Corey Helms is playing this weekend, or is he still day-to-day?
Tomorrow. I think tomorrow is when Will Muschamp said that he would give the official word. I'm not really sure if Helms has been practicing all that much. He's still been day-to-day. And I think they're going to give word on Stephen Montag as well. So there was no word that came out today. I just know for what I know from Will Muschamp's presser on Tuesday. So if I had to guess, I don't think Helms is going to go. It's just tough.
See, that's what I was thinking. I was going to take Sedarius Hutchinson if he's thrust into the starting role for the first time at Kyle Field. That's going to be the most important position on the entire team. How he plays. Whoever it is, he'll be blocking.
No, yeah, I absolutely agree. And that brings it. You bring up a good point there, Tyler, because I was actually listening to some of our other South Carolina colleagues, and they were talking about the offensive line. And one thing that I didn't really think about that I didn't notice at the game, though, was for one, Hutcherson looked really good, but the athleticism of the offensive line, it almost seemed like they ran block a little bit better when Hutcherson was in there. And it's no knock on Corey Helms or anything like that, but Sedarius Hutchinson, it seemed like they got him in there in the inside. And you had Malik Young at right tackle. You had Dennis Daly and Donnell Staley on the left side. Alan Knott, very athletic. That's a very athletic group, and it was fun to watch them kind of get around and open the holes and be able to take on these linebackers. So I feel good about Hutcherson, but I completely agree with you. Going to Kyle Field, getting your first start's a completely different animal. It's not La Tech at home. And then my final matchup, Tyler, and this one is sort of an interesting one, but it's going to be USC quarterback Jake Bentley against himself. And really the reason I say that, Jake, this offense has done a pretty decent job of starting pretty quickly, but Jake Bentley has been a little inconsistent starting out. He's been high, throws have been high, been off. He's kind of gotten off to some slow starts. He's missed some guys that have been wide open. And the red zone offense has not been good. South Carolina's gotten in the red zone, haven't scored a whole ton, had to settle for field goals. They've missed a lot of those field goals. Just a lot of different things have happened. I think it's going to be very key for Jake Bentley. One, to battle this crowd and keep his composure, but two, to settle down and get things going early, man. I mean, there's just no telling what an opening drive touchdown would do for this team's morale and confidence. I think it makes it a completely different game. Jake's going to have to settle down, settle in, hit the throws he's supposed to make, hit the wide open guys when you have them, slow the game down. But, really just stay within yourself. And I think sometimes Jake sort of tries to be the hero. He doesn't have to be. He sort of feels like there's pressure when there isn't. So I think Jake Bentley staying out of his own head, just keeping things simple, playing football, make the throws you're supposed to make, complete the throws you're supposed to make. And I think that'll be a huge key for South Carolina.
All right, my last one is going to be, out on a limb like yours was. 'Cause it's not really against the A&M defense here, but I'll take, Tyson Williams versus Rico Dowdle versus A.J. Turner, because one of them is going to have to solidify the running game. I don't think the three of them are going to, be capable of all three having a good game. One of them is going to have to stand out and take that hot hand. It's been Tyson Williams never mind, not last 2 weeks. 2 out of the last 3 weeks, because one he didn't get a carry in. One of them's going to have to step up. A.J. Turner had a good game last year. It'll be Rico and Tyson's first game against A&M. So we'll see. One of them's going to have to do something.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And it's been obviously, like you said, Tyson Williams last week had the hot hand, if you will, and I think he'll definitely get the start. Rico sort of been battling. He battled some injuries last week. I'm not sure that he's really that banged up. I'm not sure. But I just think after last week, they're going to give Tyson Williams the starting nod. And, yeah, like we said earlier, you got to get the run game going. I mean, one, it takes the pressure off Jake Bentley, but two, it helps keep that A&M offense off the field. And I mean, like I said, A&M is they're going to try to move fast. They're going to try to get points very, very quickly, keep the defense. South Carolina is already thin on defense. They've lost Bryson Allen Williams. They're already thin up there. And, South Carolina's going to have to be able to sub guys out. They don't have a lot of guys to sub in. So if you can give that defense a rest, I mean, that's going to be huge. So, yeah, I completely agree with you. One of those running backs is going to have to step up. In my opinion, it's going to have to be Tyson Williams, because I think he's going to get the first chance. But whoever it is, yes, somebody has got to make sure that solidify that running game. It's kind of a given, I guess, and sort of a cliche thing, but I mean, I'll make the bold prediction before we get in our predictions. If South Carolina has a guy rush for 100 yards, they're going to win the game. I'll tell you that right now. If South Carolina can control the line of scrimmage enough where somebody runs for 100, they'll win the football game. Okay. And it seems like that's been the key for South Carolina forever. I mean, just controlling this line of scrimmage and running the football. They can do that. They give themselves a really good shot. Moving into the keys of the game, Tyler, my first one, I think you'd agree with me, turnovers. Win the turnover battle. Like we said earlier, A&M ranks third in the country in forcing 11 turnovers. They've only turned it over 3 times, even with a freshman quarterback. You got to force turnovers against this type of offense. It sort of goes in hand with my second key to the game. But, getting pressure on Kellen Mond, making him make mistakes, man. And if that was something that Eldridge Thompson actually said in an interview this week, he thought, and I hope he can follow up with his words, but he thought that make Mond fold. They could make him fold, get pressure on him. He thinks they're going to be able to bring exotic blitzes that he hasn't seen before, get him in some uncomfortable situations. I tend to agree with you. They're going to throw a lot of quick passes. It's going to be a lot of like Louisiana Tech. It's going to be hard to get to the quarterback, but if you can get them in some second and third and longs where we know, South Carolina knows he's throwing, you got to just force Mon into some bad decisions and some bad throws. And that's something that South Carolina defense has been very, very good at since Will Muschamp was hired as head coach, forcing those turnovers. Continue this weekend.
Yep, agree 100%. My first key of the game is exactly what I just said a second in, solidifying that run game. Because, if you give Texas A&M all this time on the field, South Carolina's defense is going to be gassed like immediately. So, if we don't get a running game going, it's going to be hard, to keep up.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's, I said turnovers. It's more so even winning the turnover battle. Force more than you give up. And that to me is just going to be a huge, huge part of the game, especially on the road. That's always big on the road. My second key, I won't talk about too much because I literally just said it. Get pressure on Kellen Mond, make him make mistakes, get in his face, just force him in uncomfortable situations. But my final key to the game, Tyler, and you could chime in, like I said earlier, come out fast. Jake Bentley, be accurate early, take the crowd out of the game. Kyle Field's going to be rocking. It's a night game. They're always a really good crowd. It's 100,000 plus. Take them out of the game, get ahead, stay ahead, and, get yourself a W. I mean, South Carolina's done a pretty good job on the first drive of every single game, getting a touchdown or, getting something going. NC State, they had a kickoff return for a touchdown, then literally marched right down the field and scored. Missouri marched right down the field, missed Hayden Hurst on what should have been a touchdown on the opening drive, missed a field goal, but still marched right down the field. Kentucky, first play of the game, touchdown, and Louisiana Tech marched right down the field again, miss a field goal. So convert. Yeah, exactly. Convert when you have points. And I think that could be another key, we can talk about in a second. But come out fast. Like I said, Jake Bentley, hit the throws you're supposed to hit. build yourself some momentum, calm the crowd down, and make life a little bit easier on yourself.
Yeah, my last one's going to be, stay out of this third and long. It's going to be, almost impossible to try and come up with a play, at Kyle Field for 3rd and 12. It's going to be really difficult. And staying out of that's going to be, on these offensive linemen, these first couple series, don't false start. I mean, that bit South Carolina so much against Kentucky, and that was at home. And these young guys are just going to have to, grow up a little bit and just, 3rd and 12 is going to be almost a death sentence, I think, in this game.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. And it's really funny you mentioned that about the Kentucky game because, in the first 2 games of the year, I mean, one of them, like we said, was a neutral site, but still wasn't at home. And then Missouri, which was a true road game, South Carolina played really, really disciplined, clean football. Not a lot of false, I don't think there were really any false starts that I can really think of. Not a lot of stupid penalties. South Carolina comes home and penalties everywhere. Just a lot of dumb mistakes. I almost wonder, I mean, it seems like crazy logic, but maybe South Carolina is going to be a little more disciplined on the road. I mean, when they're using the hand signals and, you can't really hear anything, you're going straight off of, first movement or whatever, or going off of movement from your quarterback. I mean, I don't know. It's something to kind of chew on. It's something that, it'd be interesting to see what happens, but it seems like South Carolina's been a little bit more disciplined on the road this year so far, which is something I don't think either one of us would have ever expected. But I'm actually going to add another key to the game is red zone. Offensively and defensively, when A&M gets in the red zone, that bend but don't break, holding them to 3, holding them out of it, trying to force a turnover, you have got to score 7 when you get in the red zone, and you at least have to come away with points. Like we said, Parker White hitting the game winner last week. The hope is that's really going to, springboard him into, building his confidence tremendously, being able to make all, the majority of his kicks, be a solid, reliable option, not missing 31-yarders, obviously. So just the red zone, whoever's winning that battle of, whoever can get touchdowns and hold the other field goals, that's going to be huge to me. And South Carolina just they can't squander opportunities in the red zone like that. I just don't. They're not going to beat really anybody, but they're certainly not going to win this game doing that.
Yeah, 10,000,000% agree.
So with that being said, we're going to move to one of our favorite parts of the show, and it's going to be our predictions. So, Tyler, I always make you go first, so I will actually go first this week. So this is an interesting game. South Carolina's 3-1, A&M's 3-1, like we said, at Kyle Field, a night game. I have not picked South Carolina to lose yet this season. Even with the Kentucky game, I picked an outrageous 41-10 score that did not follow through. Last week, I think I had like 31-17 or something, but I haven't picked South Carolina to lose. I've been right 3 of the 4 times, but I think this game's really hard to get a read on for me. I don't feel good about the fact South Carolina's never beaten Texas A&M. I don't feel good about the fact it's in Kyle Field. The way South Carolina's looked the last 2 weeks. I will say this. I don't understand because I've been, I do scan the internet and I go through on some of the message boards, and I feel like, Tyler, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the kind of the mindset of the fan base is, we're going to get killed this weekend. We don't really have a chance. Texas A&M going to go up and down the field on us. It's not really going to be close. And, my only rebuttal to that would be, to me personally, I just feel like people are forgetting this Texas A&M team is a mess. I mean, I know they had the win over Arkansas. Yes, congratulations. But, I mean, it's a team that was losing 14-0 to Nicholls State. It's a team that was losing at halftime to Louisiana Lafayette, both at home. I understand what South Carolina did against Louisiana Tech, but I think Texas A&M is catching a lot of credit that's undeserved. However, I will say, I think Jake Bentley, they give up 300 passing yards per game. I think he's going to have an absolute field day. At least he should. I think, South Carolina's going to continue to use Tyson Williams, get him going, establish a running game. However, I just do think right now from what we've seen from Texas A&M, from South Carolina, I'm going to predict South Carolina I'm going to at least predict on my end my first loss for South Carolina. I think it's going to be a hard-fought game. It's a 50-50, literally coin toss. I could see going either way. I think it's a hard-fought game to the end. I think South Carolina covers the 9-point spread but loses the game 31-28, Texas A&M.
It's a close game. I don't think it's going to be as close. I have the same kind of feelings you do. Kellen Mond being able to run really terrifies me, and that mixed with that they actually have 3 decent running backs. And South Carolina historically is not very good against any team that has more than one running back that's capable. I don't think South Carolina's going to be able to score that many points on the road here. 2 years ago they actually didn't even play that bad. Perry Orth had a really good game, which kind of makes me want to feel better about the game.
Had the 60-yard run we talked to him about.
Right, and I don't think that's going to happen this time. I don't know where it's going to go wrong, but I just have that feeling inside. So I will pick Texas A&M to cover 28-14. Definitely don't think we're going to kick a field goal and make one. I don't think we'll even attempt one, actually.
Yeah,
that'll be my bold call.
You don't think we'll attempt one?
I don't think we'll attempt a field goal in the entire game.
Well, if you get down enough, I'm not sure it'd be a good idea to.
That's true.
I'm sort of taking a little bit of reverse psychology, if you will. I'm trying to see if picking South Carolina to lose will result in a win. So go prove me wrong.
You just ruined that there.
I think it's still my prediction stands. So I think I'm set either way. It's I don't know, like I said, it's a coin flip game, and I'll tell you this: it's really interesting to me because I think if Texas A&M would have lost to Arkansas, I think the narrative's completely different. I really do. Even though they scored 50 points or whatever, they'd have lost that game. They were 2-2, and I mean, because Kevin Sumlin would be catching fire all week, and that would be kind of the focus. And I don't know. I think a lot of people will be picking South Carolina, but especially with the way they looked against Louisiana Tech, build off what they did in the fourth quarter and really start to get things going on offense. I think they have a good chance to win, but I think just right now, off of what we've seen, I think you kind of have to roll with Texas A&M in this one, especially at home at night. That's a tough place to play and a tough place to win. So hopefully South Carolina proves us wrong. But with that being said, we're going to move into listener questions as always. This first one comes from Twitter at Doby1 Kenobi. He tweeted to us, if South Carolina beats Texas A&M, will the Kentucky loss sting less? Let's be honest, no one expected us to be 5-0 at the start of the season. Tyler, I'll let you take that one first.
That is a good question. I actually don't know how I'd feel after beating a Texas A&M team for the first time ever. But yeah, no one expected South Carolina to be 5-0, especially me, because in my preseason article, I had initially when I was doing the research, I had South Carolina 4-0. And I was like, there's no way. So I went back and predicted a loss to NC State, but I already had a loss to A&M. So I had
you had right at 3-2 then.
Right, I had us at 3-2. So 4-1 would 100%, blow my expectations away. And I think going 4-1 into a home game against an Arkansas team that no one really thinks a lot of, I will completely forget about Kentucky if South Carolina beats Texas A&M on the road at night.
Yeah, I was going to say this is an interesting one. I really like the question. We appreciate it. I'm not sure that it'll sting when it's brought up, but I think it'll just be forgotten much quicker.
I will completely just emotionally forget about it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, emotionally, I'll let it go, but it'll still be kind of one of those things like I don't want to talk about it. But definitely, it'll help South Carolina fans get over it for sure, and kind of, like I said, it's in the past, kind of out of sight, out of mind, if you will. A Texas A&M win would be huge, though, and that was something that I think was really interesting. Another storyline of this game is that you think that you kind of got one stolen from you at home. Can you go on the road and steal one from somebody else? I mean, that's that'll be interesting to see. So one of our armchair writers, actually Stephen Cabrera, our Florida armchair writer, he asked a question: how much do you think a loss to South Carolina further determines Sumlin's future? We talked about this a little bit earlier, Tyler. I think a loss to South Carolina, I think it's pretty much already determined what's going to happen. I just can't see a world where Texas A&M is going to keep him. And because, I mean, they're not going to beat Alabama. Like I said, they're probably not going to beat LSU. I don't know what will happen against teams like Mississippi State, Ole Miss, whatever, but a loss to South Carolina would be – I think he has to win this game to even have a shot to keep his job, and I think there's only like a 10% chance already at that point. So it'll be interesting to see. But last question comes from Reddit, the biggest and baddest. what's a realistic projection for the rest of the season? I mean, we lost our studs for offense and defense. Is it likely we'll get to a bowl game this year, Tyler?
Oh man, I like South Carolina's odds going to a bowl game. I don't think it'll be a particularly good bowl game, but what do you have to beat 3 teams for the rest of the year?
Yeah, and I was going to say, you've got Wofford, you've got Vanderbilt. You're at 5 there.
Right. And, yeah, I agree 100%. I think South Carolina will beat either A&M, Florida, Arkansas, or Tennessee. South Carolina will easily win one of those games. So, just assuming that they take Wofford and Vanderbilt, South Carolina will be returning to postseason play.
It's funny you said assume they'll beat Vanderbilt. It's like, whew.
Yeah, I'm not saying that.
We've had some close ones with those guys. I mean, I think we'll win too, but it's like, man, those games are always too close for comfort. Yeah, I just think South Carolina fans are they're overreacting right now. I understand what happened against Louisiana Tech, but like we said before, every good team in college football has those kind of games where they sort of lay an egg and don't really show up and whatever. But like you said, I mean, you have 5 wins with Wofford and Vanderbilt, and you're talking about Arkansas, Tennessee, Florida, Texas A&M. I mean, think of all those teams and where those teams are at right now and the problems those teams have. South Carolina is going to win at least one more of those games. And honestly, the only way to me, Tyler, South Carolina wouldn't win at least one of those games. I mean, the wheels would have to fall off.
Oh, yeah. Someone would get fired if South Carolina.
Kurt Roper would not have a job.
4-8. Yeah. Someone would get fired if South Carolina 4-8.
And honestly, I think a 4-8, 5-7 type season, there'd be grumblings about Will Muschamp too.
Yeah.
I can't see it. This team has too much talent to not make a bowl game. I mean, I really do. Even though if they haven't played up to their the expectations and potential. This team has still got a lot of talent on the offensive side of the football. It might be young, but guys like on defense too, and guys like Trey Smith on offense, and even Tyson Williams and Brian Edwards and Randrickis Davis, they're only going to get better. And Jake Bentley's only going to get better. And Sedarius Hutcherson on the offensive line, he's only going to get better. And then on the defensive side, DJ Wanham, Kier Thomas, and Brad Johnson and Aaron Sterling. Those guys are only going to get better.
And you get Zach Bailey back in a couple weeks. So, I mean, that'll infinitely make the offensive line better.
And I don't think Corey Helms is going to be one of these injuries where he's out 3-4 weeks. I mean, there's a good chance, honestly. I mean, I think it's to the point, because Will Muschamp actually said, he's a really tough dude. I mean, if Corey Helms can't play Saturday, it really is hurt. So I think it's kind of the point where if they can wrap it up and he can go, he's going to go. So
I'm not freaking out yet.
No, I'm not.
I wanted to freak out on Saturday. I'm not freaking out yet. If South Carolina loses to A&M and Arkansas, I'll start freaking out.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Yeah, you can't lose both of those. Man, I'd love to beat A&M. I was at the 2000. I was at the. I've been. Excuse me. I was at the 2014 and 2016 games. Yeah, and God, it's just something. I don't know what it is. It's something about A&M, but man, I would love to beat them.
Something about the only SEC team South Carolina hasn't beaten. So, and that's even if it's just a regular conference win, it has program bearings.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was I was just kind of touching on just a second ago. That's one thing we didn't really talk about. Will Muschamp had said that guys like Brad Johnson, Aaron Sterling, going to have bigger roles this weekend. I'm very interested to see how they use a guy like Brad Johnson, because he was a guy that was obviously extremely hyped in the recruiting process and has a lot of talent, but hasn't seen the field a whole ton this year. Also, you get Dante Sawyer back, so I really think their plan is to make life hell for Kellen Mond. I think that's how you're going to win the game. Getting him obviously in uncomfortable situations. So it'll be interesting to see. I will say I feel really good that we have Will Muschamp down at this defense. So, but it's I think depth is going to play another huge factor as far as because they're going to try to move quick, and you don't have a lot of guys in the secondary that are backing up your starters. So it's going to be another thing. Hopefully, Steven Montag can go. Steven Montag can go.
It would be really good to see him back on the field.
Yeah, absolutely. But with that being said, a little bit of post-show. Like I said, Tyler, there's a lot of good games this weekend. Starts tomorrow night with Texas, Iowa State. Friday, you've got Southern Cal going to Washington State, which is a game that's been extremely hyped up by a lot of people, but 2 undefeateds there. And then the SEC, you got some interesting ones. I think the most intriguing game is probably Georgia, Tennessee, going to Knoxville. A Tennessee team that everybody's claiming is dead. Everyone's claiming is really, down and out. But, man, it seems like these are the kind of games where Tennessee gives Georgia the most trouble and gives, Neyland has not been a place to the Georgia Bulldogs. So I'm really interested to, see. I'm really glad that's a 3:30 game and we get to watch it. I'll say that much.
Yeah, so I think that Georgia is going to win by multiple scores easily. I think Tennessee's terrible, dude.
I tend to agree. No, I tend to agree with you, but it's a very intriguing game for not so much even the reason of the score, the outcome. It's like Butch Jones, that factor. He's on the hot seat. There's a lot of SEC coaches right now on the hot seat. I mean, there's a ton. So
I'm in a group chat right now talking to people, and one of my best friends is a Tennessee fan. He just wants to, get smoked so Butch Jones can get fired and they can start over again.
Hey, not bad logic. Oh, I got a bonus question for you, Tyler, in regards to Texas A&M. Did you go to the game last year or the game in 2014?
I went to the game last year, and I was out there for the 14 game.
Okay, got you. All right, I don't know how much you know about Texas A&M, but I'm going to see how much you know because I want to see if your answer is the same as mine. Most annoying Texas A&M tradition is?
Oh, those freaking yelling people. What are they called?
Thank you. The yell leaders, yeah.
Yeah, it's
probably the most absurd, ridiculous, outrageous thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, we talked about it last year in one of my history classes, actually, because they went to the State House grounds and did their stupid little practice.
Yell practice.
Yeah, that's just stupid. You don't go into someone else's city and kind of just take over someone's, State House. That's in the middle of Columbia.
Yeah, they did that in 2014 too, and I remember because I was sitting in the end zone, the south end zone, and kind of the middle, but you could obviously clearly see the visiting section and the yell leaders. And honestly, I just would sit there and watch. I'm like, what in the world is going on?
Yeah, I sat in the upper deck last year, and there were a ton of Texas A&M fans. I mean, they were good people. I don't think they were disrespectful as Georgia fans or somebody. God, they're just loud and obnoxious, which is good for them.
Yeah, we've it's funny. I was able to have a little. We've got Shelby War, who's our Texas A&M writer at Armchair, and I've been giving her a little bit of crap here and there because listen, I'm like, Texas A&M fans, you're a different breed. Texas A&M's a different breed. And it's funny. We had Tyler King chime in, who's our Texas writer, and he definitely agreed with me. So, going to be interesting. Like I said, I will say Kyle Field is somewhere I'd love to go visit and check out. Unfortunately, won't be able to make the trip this year. I think it's like a 16-hour drive, and then
holy crap.
Yeah, I couldn't get the flight either, so going to be watching the TV, but definitely be a fun place to go, and it's a huge stadium too. So, but with that being said, I think that's pretty much going to wrap it up. Again, as always, be sure to follow us or check us out on the Spurs Up. I can't even get it out, Tyler, on iTunes at the Spurs Up Show. Go there, rate, subscribe, tell us what you like, tell us you don't like, tell me to be able to pronounce things and read things off correctly. Go to Twitter, follow us at ArmchairSCar, at ArmchairSCAR, on Instagram at ArmchairSCarolina, and also go to ArmchairAmeriCans.com. Check out the Breaking Gamecock news, all of our coverage, content, and the show as well. So with that being said, that's going to pretty much wrap it up. Tyler, you got any last words?
No last words.
All right. Well, my last words, go Cox, beat A&M. But with that being said, again, we appreciate you guys listening as always. We will come back next week when we recap the Gamecocks game against the Texas A&M Aggies. We appreciate you guys listening. We'll catch you next time.